Hello, welcome to another episode of Deck Musings. So in last week's episode we jumped forward to, was it around 98, and we were looking at a Wizards of the Coast Touchstone deck, which was a Necro deck featuring Necropotence, hence the name. But I thought it would be interesting in the series to jump back to the period of the Necro Summer and to a particular event that was interesting because of the sort of decks that were turning up. So this is around the time period we're talking about, and you can see Necropotence is full on. So the period I'm going to be looking at this week is sometime around here. I'm not going to be featuring necessarily anything from this deck in terms of what was in standard, because you'll see in a moment where I'm going with this. So we are looking at a Pro Tour. We're looking at Pro Tour Columbus, and this was interesting because previous to Pro Tour Columbus was or an event at around the same time was the US Nationals. So the US Nationals, the format was Type 2, and it was right in the middle of the Necro Summer. And as they say here, I'm going to include a link to this article, by the way. It's really interesting. It's all about the early days of the Pro Tour. So as it says here, 122 Type 2 standard decks in Nationals. So let's jump back here. This gives you some idea of what sets would have been in standard at that point. And of that 122, 44 of them featured Necropotence. And the finals of the Nationals was a Necro on Necro match with Dennis Bentley versus George Baxter. The Columbus Pro Tour was Ice Age Alliances block constructed, and the winner of the Pro Tour's second constructed event was Ollie Raid of Gothenburg, Sweden. And it's interesting because this was a red-green aggro deck, sometimes called Spiders as it is here. So we're going to take a look at Spiders this week. And here it says, unlike the very well-explored Type 2 format where Necro was the far most dominant deck, Ice Age block constructed was wide open. Block constructed formats are always quirky. At first glance, block constructed decks can look very casual. You always have to remember how few cards are available to the players. Ice Age Alliances saddle players with the smallest pool of cards ever for a constructed format in the pros. The top four decks all had some sort of bit of red in them. The second place deck, played by Long Island's Sean Fleischman, was mostly blue-white control deck featuring Blinking Spirits and Force of Will, but also a little black for Mind Warp and 5 mountains for Incinerate, Jokulhaups and Stone Rain, all in the main deck. Fun fact, all 4 semi-finalists had Zuran Orb in their decks. Only the champion Raid kept his in the sideboard. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing his last name there. He earned Pro Player of the Year honours for the 1996 Pro Tour season, the shortest season ever, including only the first 3 Pro Tour events as well as the World Championships in August that year. So here's the deck on MTG Top 8. You can see it's got, for Pro Tour Columbus, it's got the 2 final decks. There's the Sean Fleischman deck. In the Sean Fleischman deck, there's a lot of cards I think that I've featured already in later episodes, so I may not decide to feature this deck. Also, I do want to jump back further in one of the episodes, talk about some earlier sets that were around as well, and the sort of decks and with particular reference to an event which I'm trying to think which I think I'm going to cover, thinking about covering Pro Tour New York actually, which was earlier, and we'll see. It's not set in stone, but yeah, I fancy covering what was then known as Pro Tour Speed Dial. It's an interesting format for that. I'll include a link to the final of the 1996 Pro Tour Columbus. Interesting. It's not very high resolution, unfortunately, but yeah, interesting final to watch. July the 7th. And here is the Spiders deck. So as always, let's just go through this, take a look at some of the cards, and then we'll start drilling down through the individual cards, looking at cards that are similar to these in Magic's history, you know, if they're part of a cycle, looking at cycles, and just go off in interesting directions. So there's 2 artifacts in the main deck. We've got 2 Lodestone Baubles, 0 to cast, 1 tap it, sacrifice it, put up to 4 target basic lands from any player's graveyard on top of his or her library in any order. That player draws a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. We've got Urza's Bauble, which is 0 to cast, so another 0 to cast artifact. You can see this one actually was from Alliances, this one here was from Ice Age. Tap, sacrifice it, and you choose a card from random from a target player's hand. Look at that card. It says ignore this ability if that player has no cards left in hand. Draw a card at the beginning of the turn's next upkeep. So it could be used just as a card draw. And then we have 21 creatures. And you can see there's a couple of spiders in here, well actually 8 in total. So we've got Fyndhorn Elves, single green, tap, add green to your mana pool, play this ability as an interrupt. And you can see here also I've got all of the cards come either from Ice Age or Alliances. Gorilla Shaman, single red, XX1, destroy target non-creature artifact with casting cost equal to X. We've got Giant Trapdoor Spider in the decks, 1 red-green. It's a 2/3. 1 red-green tap, remove from the game target creature which doesn't have flying and is attacking you, and Giant Trapdoor Spider. Orcish Cannoneers, there's 2 of those. 1 and 2 red, tap, Orcish Cannoneers deals 2 damage to target creature or player and 3 damage to you. Storm Shaman, 2 and a red, 0/4, but it has fire breathing on it, so single red, +1/+0 until end of turn, but of course you can invest as much red as you have into that. Woolly Spider, 1 and 2 green for a 2/3. It can block creatures with flying. If Woolly Spider is assigned to block creatures with flying, Woolly Spider gets +0/+2 end of turn. So this block creatures with flying would now be referred to as reach. Don't you love these early cards, pre-keywords? 4 and a green, deadly insect. So it's a 6/1, and it cannot be the target of spells or effects. So we've got Shroud on this. So if I remember, it'd be interesting to see how Shroud plays out across different colours. 2 enchantments, 2 copies of Stormbind. So 2 discard a card at random from your hand to have Stormbind deal 2 damage to target creature or player. So you can see a lot of these things, this utility in this deck, you can sort of see it coming. But we do have a couple of instances. So we've got a Giant Growth. Single green, target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. So Giant Growth, if you remember, would have been one of the original boons. A cycle of 5 cards from Alpha, way back in those days. And we have 4 copies of Incinerate, 1 and a red, deals 3 damage to target creature or player. No creature damage by Incinerate can regenerate this turn. I'm not sure if we've seen this artwork yet. We've seen Incinerate a few times now, and it was lurking around in multiple sets, I think. Although sometimes I do get these muddled up, as I've mentioned before. You know, there's a lot of 1 and 2 drop burn cards where they mess around with the wording slightly to make some slightly better or slightly worse than others. Ice Age artwork on land. So we've got 7 forests. This is one of the ones from Ice Age. We'll be looking at some forest artwork in a moment. We've got some mountains here, another 7 of those, and then we've got 4 of these Karplusan Forests, and with the old style wording as well. So tap, add colourless to your mana pool. Tap, add red to your mana pool, but if you do, it deals 1 damage to you. Tap, add green to your mana pool. If you do, it deals 1 damage to you. So that was part of a cycle. We'll talk a little bit about that cycle. And this would have been a part of the allied coloured cycle for those. Then we've got 7 sorceries, 2 lava bursts, X and a red, deals X damage to target creature or player. Effects that prevent or redirect damage cannot be used to protect that creature. So we have a fireball type card here. We've got a Pyroclasm, 1 and a red, deals 2 damage to each creature. So it's like a weenie mass removal, I suppose. We've got Pillage, 1 and 2 red, bury target artifact or land. So land destruction, artifact destruction. And then we've got Jokulhaups, 4 and 2 red, bury all artifacts, creatures and lands. So red, a wrath spell for artifacts, creatures and lands. In the sideboard we have quite a number of different cards actually. There's lots of one-ofs in this deck in the sideboard. So we've got Zuran Orb, that's 0 to cast, 0, sacrifice a land to gain 2 life. Going back to Necro decks, I believe this turned up in Necro decks at the time in other tournaments. I don't know if actually I didn't look to see if there were any specifically anybody tried to attempt a Necro deck in Ice Age block with just Ice Age and alliances. I'm sure it was done, but generally you tended to find that more in Type 2 and any other format that could obviously play Necro with the appropriate support cards, so you didn't end up just basically killing yourself. Pyroblast, a single red counter target spell if it is blue, or destroy target permanent if it is blue, counter or destruction. Primitive Justice, 1 and a red, destroy target artifact, destroy a target artifact for each 1 red you pay in addition to the casting cost. Destroy a target artifact and gain 1 life for each 1 green you pay in addition to the casting cost. Interesting modal. Yeah, way that they've handled modality there on a card back then. Pyroclasm, 1 and a red, deals 2 damage to each creature, so that is just increasing the count if you need to. I'll keep an eye on that actually. Essence Filter, 1 and 2 green, destroy all enchantments or destroy all non-white enchantments. Anarchy, 2 and 2 red, destroy all white permanents. So I'm assuming there was some sort of like mono white decks kicking around in this format, or had the potential for that, like White Weenie. You probably pretty much build a White Weenie deck in any format. Icy Manipulator, 4 to cast, 1 tap target artifact, creature or land. Slightly different artwork than the other Icy Manipulators. Jester's Cap, 2 tap, sacrifice Jester's Cap to look through target player's library and remove any 3 of those cards from the game. Reshuffle that library afterwards. So yeah, good for dealing with combo decks. Monsoon, 2 red green. Whenever an island is untapped at the end of its controller's turn, tap it. Monsoon deals 1 damage to that player. Vexing Arcanix, so 4 to cast, 3 tap. Target player names a card and then turns over the top card of his or her library. If that is the card named, put it into the player's hand. Otherwise, put it into the player's graveyard. And Vexing Arcanix deals 2 damage to that player. And then there's another copy of Jokulhaups here, which was in the main deck. Okay, let's see where we end up. So, let's start with the good stuff. So this is the forest artwork for Ice Age. I nearly said Iceland's for Ice Age. Very nice. Here's the mountains. And seeing as I'm talking about these, and it's quite possible, you know, I might not necessarily revisit Ice Age land in future episodes. Let's have a look at the rest of the land. So there's the plains, there's the islands, and the swamp, including there. In this one I've actually got the snow-covered plains as well. And all of these had, as you can see, there's the red one and there's the green one, had corresponding snow-covered lands, although none in this deck. Yeah, when I come to do Friday's recording for the artwork episode, I'm planning on featuring Ice Age, so I should definitely try and dig out, I think, some land artwork for that, basic land artwork, see what I've got. I have already covered it in a No Hand No Land, but that was, sorry, not No Hand No Land, and a Christmas Land Hoy episode, so wouldn't hurt to revisit that. I don't think it's been probably 2 to 3 years since that video went out. Okay, so Karplusan Forest. So this was a cycle of Painlands. Let's have a look at this, the full cycle, and we will go in and we will do our old friend is first printing. And let me just copy that into the clipboard. So let's do by colour, yeah. So you can see here the rest of the cards that form part of the cycle in Ice Age, but that was just the Allied cycle. Here's the rest of them. So this wasn't printed until Apocalypse, and you can see these are the enemy ones, and you can see how the wording has changed. It's been sort of combined up here into, so the 2 at the end have gone together to be one. Pretty cool, actually. And let me just pick this one again so you can see. So it's been reprinted quite a number of times. If you're curious about the artwork for the reprints, you can see the artwork has varied quite a bit over the years. And you can see the prices. Wow, 7th edition. That must be a foil version then. Yep, So the cheaper ones, are obviously the ones that cropped up in the championship deck. What was interesting here is, I believe what had happened was for, I don't know if I can find it. When did that come out? But these Pro Tour collector sets were, I suppose, like a precursor to the World Championship decks that cropped up. Starting around, was it 97, as we've seen in previous episodes. So these predate those, I believe. But again, I could be wrong on that. And I'm not sure exactly what Pro Tour they covered, but that's my understanding, is that's where they come from. May have even been as late as 97 possibly. Oh yeah, one other thing. Sorry. Where are we? I was curious as to how many times this has been reprinted. It's cropped up quite a bit in Commander product. And of course with that, the reprinting of the cycle would be dependent on the decks in Commander in terms of what colour combinations were used, because as we've seen in various years in Commander products, they didn't always follow a pattern of, doing, say, all the 3-colour wedges, or all the 3-colour, all the decks were, say, 3-colour wedges, all the decks were 3-colour shards, or allied, 2-colour allied, or 2-colour enemy. As time went on, number of later decks, there might be a 2-colour deck in the Commander products, and there might be a 5-colour deck, or whatever. So, and as we go through the Saturday deck flip throughs, we'll start to see those particular sets emerge. At the moment, we're up to doing, was it Commander 2014? So we're seeing monocolour decks as a thing. Okay, deadly insects cannot be the target spells or effects. This is going to be interesting. So with this, oh yes, of course it was reprinted for the Cold Snap theme decks. Also Mercadian Masks as well. And here you can see it definitely, it's been oracled to include the word shroud. So that's something I really was interested in, is the the shroud side of things. So let's have a look and see here. So I'm going to assume that everything here has been oracled, which it usually is. So we'll go by release date, and we will do, because I copied it across, so I was lazy there, I should have just typed it in. So we have an enchantment, interesting enough, with it on. Enchanted creature is shroud as long as it's untapped. Okay, so that was legends, and then we have the homelands. Some of these would have been, multiple different artwork as well. And then Autumn Willow. So in terms of what sort of colours we might see this in, I'm going to lock this down a bit further. So I'm more interested in creatures than necessarily things that give cards Shroud. And then we'll have a look at Shroud, and then we'll have a look at Hexproof, because the two are, you know, connected. So if I was to look at all the times that it might crop up on white cards. So because some of these are going to be because they're in combination with another colour. And you can see here we've got quite a number of cards which are also have blue somewhere in them, the colour identity of blue. So 14. These are obviously going to get double counted in some instance, but it will give us a rough rule of thumb here. We've got 4 in black. Some of these as well might be, yeah, so they're there. Just looking to see. That one's Sky Shroud. So yeah, technically speaking, yeah, these are not in here because of the fact they have Shroud. That one creates a token with Shroud. These ones have Shroud in the name. And this one inherits Shroud from other creatures, so arguably nothing in black. Yeah, I'd have to watch out for that for all of these actually. Morphling. So blue would be the colour where I'd expect to see quite a number of Shroud things. What about red? That because it's got blue in it. That, I suppose, what's green? Yes, all of these have another colour. And then green. Yeah, so quite a number of green cards with Shroud. When did it stop? Mono green. Scythe Tiger. See, yeah, you do see Shroud in green. So it is a thing. But I was curious. In terms of just going back to this and then comparing it with, say, something like Hexproof. So this is where, you know, the particular thing in question can't be target of spells or abilities an opponent controls, because the problem with Shroud is, of course, it does mean that you can't target it with your own spells. $146. Yeah, why not go through the colours, eh? Seeing as we're in here. What's the rush? Oh, Odric. Again, another one of those cards that sort of shares shares the shroudness about a bit. A shroud sharer. Yeah, well, no surprise. $57. What about Hexproof in black? So we've got some cards here with blue in it, but yeah, definitely quite a few more cropping up in black than was with Shroud. A few more anyway. And then the red ones, we've got 10 of those. Interesting, isn't it? Well, hexproof from mono-coloured. That's fairly specific. And then we have hexproof in green. So shroud stroke hexproof, definitely a heavy green blue thing. Fyndhorn Elves, yeah. I think this is a sort of card we've seen before, or variations thereof. Yeah, similar to Lanor Elves. And similar to Elvish Mystic. And better than Woodland Mystic, because that's a 2-drop. But yeah, Mana Dorks, 237 taggings. Mana Dorks everywhere, across multiple colours, and it'll be no surprise to see that. Oh, his first printing. Yeah, this dates back to the early days of Magic Prize Peak. That's funny. What did I just do there? Yeah. Birds of Paradise. You know, spread about a bit across colours. I mean, when you're thinking about Mana Dorks, I suppose, you know, if we look at the number here, 237, for me, you know, it's obviously green. 158 cards in green. Let's just look at this again, some of this can be quite crude because there's some combinations here, because some are going to be green in there as well. I was fascinated by the black Mana Dorks. It doesn't include things here. There was, if you remember, early days of Magic, there's quite a number of a number of cards in black that filter filter mana, colours of mana, turn it from one colour to another. There's some interesting mana producers as well in blue, you see. Okay. Giant growth. Yep. Reprinted a number of times. And we have Might of Oaks, which is similar to, well, 3 in a green, 7/7. Natural Predation, which it is better than. Single green, just a 1/1. What's this? Related to Seal of Strength. Sacrifice Seal of Strength. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. Yeah, there's a number of cards, aren't there, that in some of the earlier episodes of Set Musings, you'll notice that it came up quite a few times where there would be cards which incorporate the abilities from a lot of the boons in some way, or yeah, either it's like stapled to a particular creature, or there's some sort of similarity between the cards. So that's something else that I don't think I've spoken about in these episodes, is with some of these, you know, simpler spells, there was in certain sets in Magic, there were cycles of other cards which roughly followed the cycle of, say, the boons, for example, but in a slightly different configuration. where the ability might be stapled to a creature, or this business here where you've got a card which is an enchantment, say, and you sack it and then it does the thing that the instant would do. So yeah, you see quite a bit of that. There's our cycle boon. Yeah, I've looked at this before. I don't know how much time I want to spend, but there's the idea of a giant growth type effect. There are quite a number of cards that will do that, or cards that, like I said, have it again, stapled to it. In terms of instant speed, giant growth type effects, I'll have a quick look, because that's a well-worn combat trick, and yeah, growth effect popular on modal spells. And then if you see it on an instant, actually, I'm curious now, because what do we see on artifacts? Okay. I'm just looking to see if there's ever been an artifact which doesn't completely colourless, where there's actually a something like this at instant. Sorry, it wouldn't be an instant speed. Let me just check I've worded that. Yeah, so giant growth. Okay. And the other thing with the giant growth effect is there's other ways that pumping can be realised, not just through giving something +2/+2, but through, say, counters. You get growth effects that way, either with stuff that moves counters or adds counters, or things like proliferate as well will have an effect on that. Like instant speed proliferate on something that already has counters on it can have a sort of growth effect. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. Even something as simple as giant growth can be really interesting to think about, and think how that particular bit of magic, how that manifests itself across different types of card, different other mechanics which facilitate that in different ways. So yeah. Giant trapdoor spider. Okay. So it was in the Cold Snap theme deck. They did keep the original artwork, but I don't know if anybody noticed this. It was always fascinating to see the cards that cropped up in the theme decks for that set, because they'd taken the original artwork and put it in modern borders, and it made a massive difference. And to see, quite a number of those side by side was interesting. So interesting to see a theme deck where you have mixed old and new artwork. I'm trying to think actually what would be the first theme deck where that really happened, where suddenly you saw cards which had been new artwork. I know obviously it happened in sets, but to actually see that, yeah. So it's it's the only thing I regret is with some of these sets, what it must have been like to open up the cards at the time. I'm trying to think when Cold Snap came out. I think the most exciting time to open Magic cards must have been before the modern internet age. Before. I mean, we had the internet around 93, 94 when Magic first came out, but to have that veil of ignorance to some degree back then, and then of course as more and more spoilers became available on the internet, that veil of ignorance was shattered. But that must have been exciting times to you know, the first time you see a card, and you're ever going to see a card, is when you open product. And the only way, of course, you can achieve that in the modern era is if you completely disconnect yourself from anything on social media or searching the internet. Yes, it must have been fun times. If anybody watches these videos that was in that position, I'd love to hear your comment on that, like what it must have been like. I mean, I suppose I got it a little bit when I opened even as late as 10th edition, which is my first packs I opened, because I didn't look at stuff a lot online for whatever reason. So that was quite exciting. Of course, once you got the set, it had the encyclopedia with it, so of course you got to see all the cards. Yeah. Anyway, I digress. But interesting thing, Hunting Kavu. So same colour. It's 2/3 from the game. Okay. It's a Kavu. Removal creature exile, hate attacker. That's the bit I'm probably most interested in. And particularly where it's stapled to a creature. Because obviously it's going to be on instant speed spells and non-creature spells. But what about that? Oh well, what you know? First of its kind. Yeah, this Hunting Kavu. What set was that then? That was Invasion block. Cool block. Yeah. That is what's fun about this deck that I started off this. You know, you've got a deck that's built from just two sets. And there's that interesting area in constructed, which I don't think it's ever been a format, but you know, certainly like casual formats where this idea of like just building a constructed deck from just one set. I spoke about it actually, and the video's actually not gone out yet, concerning a book I've got where it was like common decks for this is where I get muddled up. By the time this video drops, it will be out, but I talk about cards from 5th edition and building decks with just commons from 5th edition, which is interesting. There's a whole load of decks actually in the book, in that book, like that. So yeah, clearly obviously a thing, but not aware of it ever being a thing necessarily at a tournament level in terms of, you know, constructed decks from a single set. Obviously limited decks from a single set. Yeah, so a number of cards that do trapdoor spider type things. And there was this thing, champion as an elemental. So that way, yeah, there's a number here actually, which is interesting, because champion did that, but in for a different reason, where you were sacking stuff. And yeah, I suspect as we go through this, there's going to be other mechanics which you're sacrificing your own stuff in exchange for bringing out another creature. Wasn't there maybe I'm thinking of a slightly different effect. where you leveraged existing creatures. Yeah, don't see it here. I think. I think I've missed it. Sometimes the wording is such it wouldn't necessarily come up. I mean, I know there's things like imprint where you're exiling stuff. Yeah, there's several here that are actually exiling stuff as well when the thing comes into play. So things like, yeah, banish a priest, but it doesn't destroy itself in the process, which Giant Trapdoor Spider does. So yeah, it's sorry, yeah, what am I saying? It's actually exiling the creature. And you're exiling giant. Okay, so I got the wording right. Exile, yeah, so you're actually exiling both. Yeah, I must admit, I probably misspoke there. Yeah, so these are all exiles, but some are not exiling both. Gorilla Shaman, very interesting. Something again like, yeah, crops up in the Cold Snap theme decks, and was in a couple of different alliances. Was another set where you had like multiple artwork. Obviously, we see it a lot now, but I'm talking about back in the day. Oh, look at that! So it's a bit of a tip on how math works. That's funny. Yeah, that can get very confusing. These XX1 spells. It's always good to have a reminder. These are just stuff that references it. Removal, artifact, destroy, and also a mana sink there. Yeah, so anything like this where it's an X and something, it's like it's a mana sink. Is that something we see a lot of on? Again, I'm more interested probably in creatures. I mean, obviously you get artifact destruction. Oh, of course, acidic slime, yes, but that can do a number of things. Yeah. Oh, the floral spasm. Yes. Yes, floral spasm attacks an opponent is not blocked, then floral spasm may choose to destroy a target creature under that opponent's control. Target artifact. Did I say creature? Target artifact. Oh dear, yeah, it's definitely some very weird looking cards here. Oh, this one, yeah. Timurin Fiends. What the hell? It's like cosplay gone horribly wrong. That's this guy clearly cosplaying Vince Neil from Motley Crue, I think. Katabi Fairies. Oh yeah, Katabi irritating the Rats of Wrath. Destroy target artifact, creature or land you control. I remember. Yeah, I must have. What was that in? Yeah, that was it. I was thinking, how did I end up playing Tempest on Magic the Gathering Online? But it was Tempest Remastered. And this card in Tempest Remastered, as you can see, was a common, well, as it was originally. And I remember, I think, pulling multiple copies of this. And possibly attempting to do something with it. Probably completely, yeah. Unsuccessfully was the word I was trying to say there. Oh, and Glisser, yes. Was Glisser the only legendary with that? Before I forget. Was Glisser the only legendary with that one? I don't think so, because that would be something you might see in red, mightn't you? But was that the no, not the green one? Okay. Reaper King's got on it as well. That, yeah, that's an interesting commander to play around with, like a Scarecrow tribal. And Jaya. So what is the difference here? Hang on, I'm missing something. So that's 4 and a red. I mean, obviously this is more red. 3 and 2 red. 3 red, destroy target artifact creature. Oh, sorry. It does help if you actually read the card. So 3 and a red, destroy target non-creature artifact. Gotcha. Okay. So one does artifact, one does artifact creatures. Fair enough. And we will move on to Incinerate. So a card of which I've spoken probably on numerous occasions. So is there anything I can say new about this card? So you can see better than Fire Ambush. 3 damage to target creature or player for 1 and a red. This one here, it can't regenerate. Similar to Lightning Bolt's cheaper, but Lightning Bolt's cheaper, but doesn't stop regeneration. Open fire. What's that? Is that higher cost? Yeah, 2 and a red for 3. Volcanic Hammer. There's 1 and a red. Deals 3 damage to target creature or player. So casting cost the same, but you don't get that you can't regenerate thing. And of course we've got Lightning Strike. So yeah, I'm sure, yeah, we have spoken a lot about this. You find there's quite a number of 2-drop 3 damage red spells. Particularly because when you look at Lightning Bolt, not surprisingly, it's banned in Historic, but there was quite a big gap, you know, in its history in terms of when it was originally printed and then it was, you know, reprinted again. From what I can remember, let's see if my memory is correct here. Yeah, so it's often difficult to see here, but if we go back to, yeah, so you can see, look, we've got these. So let me try and find the actual set ones, because these are all the special printings. Yes, so did crop up in 4th edition in the core set, and it'd been in the core sets up to that point, and then we get nothing apart from these, you know, reprints in various supplemental sets and online and in the world decks and various things. And then we've got the M10 version, and then it stuck around for a little bit and it makes an appearance here and there, but seemingly something that gets reserved for special occasions. So not surprisingly, I would say there's an awful lot of Incinerate type spells, instant speed, either functional reprints. In terms of Incinerate itself, how many times has that been reprinted as Incinerate? Yeah, so yeah, this is what I think I was talking about. Is you can see we've seen now. I'm not sure if we've seen all of the artwork from this period around this time. So definitely this one and this one now. And not sure if I covered that one or not. Lightning bolt. So, Jokulhaups. What can we say about Jokulhaups? So with this, we have a board sweeper. Bury all artifacts, creatures and lands. I wonder if I have a copy of this in paper. We'll see. 5th edition. So yeah, what's reprinted in other, later core sets and in the deck masters. So yeah, it's your red mass removal. Let's see what it's in as. So a sweeper artifact destroy, sweeper land destroy, and sweeper creature destroy. So several separate things there. So I just need to pick one. Sorcery speed. So that then raises the question, in my mind at least, and we'll see in a moment, is do we see any things like this at instant speed? So let's look at artifact destroy. And you can see here these cards may purely do artifact destruction or might do artifact destruction in combination with other things, either together or as a modal spell. So that's the one I'm going to go down, is do we ever see this sort of thing at instant speed as opposed to sorcery? So for artifact destruction, and I'll go through the different ones like the creatures, the other ones. You can see here, yeah, these are pretty late. Do I want to do... Well, it's not going to hurt, is it? I don't think it's going to make any difference myself, but there you go. And the order in which they were released. Oops, that's better. There we go. Factoring Gust, 2 green-white modal. Green-white, green-white, green-white. Did I say modal? I meant hybrid mana. Hybrid mana. Destroy all artifacts and enchantments. You gain 2 life for each permanent destroyed this way. And Rampage of the Clans, 3 in a green. Destroy all artifacts and enchantments. If you're curious, let's just, why don't we do a compare and contrast here. So that's the ones at sorcery speed. We're just going to keep seeing Jokulhaups obviously come up a lot. And we got things like Obliterate, of course. And Void. And Creeping Corrosion. Again, some of these may just do only artifacts. Yeah, I did really like the artwork on that. It's funny, isn't it? Even if the artwork doesn't look like it, whenever I see anything like this with like a tube type thing and some sort of corrosion, immediately think of the Aliens franchise. I can't help it. In fact, I've often wondered that, whether WotC have ever come close to getting into IP trouble with the Alien franchise, because some things look remarkably close. Not necessarily that one, but I'm sure you're aware of other cards where that is the case. Okay. Hopefully you're enjoying this episode. Again, this might be over long, but I am finding this sort of stuff fascinating. And also it's, interestingly enough, making me slow down. Because I just want to relish this. And really reflect on this stuff. So that's all the stuff. If we just look at instant speed, to compare it with a sorcery speed sweeper. So these all are creatures. And all the ones that do creatures. So let's compare it with the type that actually Jokulhaups is. Obviously a lot more here. And no surprise to see Wrath of God crop up. We've got Hellfire. And of course you've got ones here that destroy specific creatures or types of creatures or certain states of creatures, like, whether it's tapped. And then on top of that, what was I going to say? What happens after? Because we have my favourite here, Phyrexian Rebirth. So do you get additional stuff because of that? And then finally, my favourite, not necessarily, but I always find it amusing, probably because of the no land episode. So, yeah, our old friend, land destruction, or specifically sweeping. Of course, it's no fun, but there we have it, Armageddon. Yeah, you can see something that they've dialed back over time. I did mention Obliterate before, I think. So if we again see if, so 26 in total. So 19 sorceries that have some reference to removing all land. Instant speed one. There is one, and it's very specific to islands. It's called Boil. Destroy all islands. Instant speed. Last time we saw it was 8th edition. Yeah. Yeah, we did that one. Oh, of course, yeah, the verdicts, supreme, of which Supreme Verdict is one. Okay, Lava Burst does X damage to target individual player. Effects that prevent or redirect damage cannot be used to protect this creature. So I'll probably expect here. So we've got Burn Any. A removal creature, prevent damage redirection. Unpreventable damage. Okay, I don't think that's something we've looked at before. Unpreventable damage. At least not in this particular sort of connotation. So there's our Lava Burst. Nice artwork. Never been reprinted. But we do have Banefire, so yeah, there are cards where sort of similar here, although it's dependent on the amount of X you invest. So what I'd probably be better for me to do is again focusing on the type of card, because we're going to get a bit of a mixed bag here. So stuff at sorcery speed, why that's the case. So I'm looking here to see what have we got X damage wise. So Demon Fire, Bane Fire and Fear Fire foes. The rest seem to have like a static amount of damage. Yeah. But is that something we would ever see at instant? I don't think we see scalable ones here. I think they all have a static value to the amount of damage. Yeah. That would be pretty obscene for that. Unpreventable damage. I'm now curious, of course. So we have Fireball, which is sorcery speed, Incinerate. This spell costs one more to cast for each target beyond the first number of, okay. Multiple targets. And how is that classed? But yeah, Burn Any, okay. D&D spell, similar to Blaze. So that's the commonality of the two cards, I suppose, is a Burn Any effect. But what I'm then interested is a Burn Any X spell. That's a sorcery. I suppose that's what I'm really looking for. And if I do this, is that gonna help me? 46. Of course, yeah, Disintegrate. There we go. Disintegrate, Lava Burst. Scent of Cinder, and then I do need to add this in. Just yeah, there's Fireball. Okay, It's more like it. So yeah, this was the sort of search I was looking for really, just so I could get both of those, both Fireball and well, all three actually. Fireball, was it Incinerate? Did I say, or Disintegrate and Lava Burst. And then you also see things like Caravex Torch as well, and Blaze from, what was that, Portal? Yeah, Portal. Functionally, what's the most recent thing we see? Got Crater Claws. These Zeniths were interesting, weren't they? Damage to target creature or player. If a creature dealt damage this way, we put it into graveyard this turn. Exile it instead and shuffle Red Sun Zenith into its owner's library. And if I go back here, so Lava Burst we saw, not really reprinted many times. Fireball, what, up to 4th edition? Disintegrate, 4th edition. Some black cards that do it. Mirage. That's interesting, you can turn it into an instant. Demon Fire, yeah. They didn't really last long. So Bane Fire, has that been... That was reprinted in Core Set 2019. I mean, I suppose, again, just thinking off the top of my head, like a scalable red damage spell, I'm assuming you have to be really careful like what sets you put that in. We've got one here that scales off mountains. It's 5 to cast, so that's coming up as well. Right, moving on. Lodestone Bauble. Okay, what do we have here? Cares about basic land. Restock land. Okay, it's from any player's... That seems really cool. So worst case, you have, well, yeah, you have card replacement. Oh, it's cost 1, 0 to cast. I mean, in a deck that cares about how many artifacts you have in play, that's helpful as well. I'm just thinking this is, quite an interesting political card, because that's any player's graveyard, but you're putting them on top of the library. Okay, so that's also interesting. So, you say you're mana flooding. You could potentially mana flood them. I'd be interested in people's comment on this card. It is interesting. Oh, Only 3 cards tagged as restocking land. Huh. Is that specifically a term that's used, I suppose, from when you take it from your graveyard and put it at the top of your library? I suppose, yeah, restocking. Cantrip was the word I was trying to think of earlier as well. Delayed cantrip. You get card draw off the card. I mean, there must be a number of cards that care about basic lands. Restock. Oh, there we go, yeah. Affects the return cards from the graveyard to the library. Aha. Named in Marrow's Colour Pie 2017 article. Okay, 185 of those. So that's just, did they restock anything? Yeah, again, this is something I never really thought about. Like restock effects. And we've got a mixed bag here. Obviously we've got stuff that shuffles into the owner's library. Stuff that comes back, yeah, things like Steel Colossus. Well, this is a whole rabbit warren. This one, and then Emrakul. I'll throw this little card. But specifically this, I mean, yeah, this isn't something we see at all. Really much of its time, I suppose. Orcish Cannoneers. Yeah, there's these orc cannon things, like, for instance, Orcish Artillery. Yeah, similar to, yeah, well, what's that? Functional reprint. 1 and 2 red, 1/3, tap, deals 2 damage to target creature or player, and 3 damage to you. Mono red goblins. Draw back. I mean, imagine that's a lot of gears, just so many cards with drawbacks. It's a pinger. I don't know what the exact Oracle wording is. Maybe I should check that before I try. Let's just do this. Okay. Yeah, Goblin Artillery, Orcish Artillery, Orcish Cannoneers. And then there's the Guild Mages, which shared a colour activation cost as well. Oh, what's this? Splintering Wind. Oh, it's got cumulative uplift, and when the token leaves play, it deals 1 damage to you and each creature you control. Very strange. Delayed self-pinging there. How old are some of these? Yeah, that looks pretty old. Oh look, yeah. Limited edition alpha. Brothers of Fire. Okay. Pillage. Target artifact or land. Yeah, so obviously the Jokulhaups was a sweeper. This is what do you call it? Spot removal, and a whole load of stuff that does that. And surely there will be a time, I imagine, when they decided that not everybody liked this sort of thing. I'm just curious, like, did we see a fall off in land destruction over time? I suppose there's always been the odd stone rain cropping about, molten rain, sort of kicking around. Helldozer. Oh yeah, good old ghost quarter. But this is what this was a sorcery, wasn't it? And there's Stone Rain, Strip Mine, of course Fissure, yes. Fumarole, Despotier. So in terms of course Icequake as well, yeah. We've got Sinkhole, we've got Icequake, we've got Pillage. See, this does artifacts and lands. Yeah, Rain of Tears. Befoul. Despoil. Yeah. Oh, of course, Vindicate, which did any target permanent. You got things like Poison the Well as well, and then Drain the Well. Sorcery Speed. What we got most recent stuff? Oh, Fire of Orthanc with extra creatures without flying shenanigans. Oh, good old modal spell. Wonderful. Pyroclasm. 2 damage to each creature. Sweep a creature burn. And similar to Cinderclasm. Oh, that was a kicker spell. Okay. And Whip Flare. Non-artifact creatures. So sweep a creature burn at, what should we say, CMC 2. So puts it in that slot. I like that. Okay, that's an interesting thing. Smash to dust. So 2 damage. And do we mainly see, looks like what there is that? Oh, that's instant speed. But if we don't kick it, for 1 and a red we get 1 damage. Okay, so if we kick it, so 1 and 2 red we get 2 damage. Okay. Storm Shaman. 0 fire with 0 fire. Dear me. 0/4 with fire breathing. Oh yes, Molten Ravager. It's 1 to until end of turn. 0/4, 2 and a red, yeah, same card. Fire breathing, creature type, erratum. So obviously we've looked at fire breathing before. Why I've come in here is, can I do this? So if I do toughness, greater than 3, just let me just read. Oh, 69. Okay, so I'm just going to put these in order. It's Shivan Dragon. So what I'm curious about, where are we? So Storm Shaman. I did. So I'm just, what's the biggest fire breather? Six, greater than 6, that's 7. Without flying, how many times do we see it without flying? 153. Is that because it's on the other side? Yeah. What about ones without restrict? So if I do take out the walls, take out the flyers, and the red cards. Tough knees. Cards. There's our Molten Ravager. Just wanted to make sure there hadn't been a errata there. Okay. That's probably as much as I wanted to see. Oh yeah, Chartooth Kuda, although quite, you know, I suppose it is a bigger creature, isn't it? So. Stormbind. Another one with a Luvisa Cold Ice reference on it, as was the previous card. So yeah, lots of things on here. 1 red green. Discard a card at random from your hand to have a Stormbind deal 2 damage to target creature or player. Your random discard, pinger, which is creature removal. Yeah, discard outlets, quite a thing. Okay. Urza's Bauble. Delayed cantrip, virtual legendary. Yeah, I think didn't we come across this before where, yeah, one of a kind creature or object that could conceivably have been a legendary but isn't. Oh, eggs. Artifacts have to be sacrificed to do something. That's what an egg is, apparently. So I'm sure we're sort of familiar with these. So Urza's Bauble, here you're sacrificing it to choose a card at random from target player's hand. Look at that card. Ignore this ability if that player has no cards in hand. Draw a card at the beginning of the next turn. So you're sort of peeking at the hand. Peeking at the hand. But there's other cards that do something else off the back up. But like I said, it used the term there. Yeah, so an egg is an artifact that can be sacrificed to do, yeah, anything. 87 of those. specifically, I mean, to do with the hand, I don't know. Got stuff that discards your hand. Yeah, that's not going to be a great way of looking at this, is it really? He's brought up some interesting other cards, but yeah, so yeah, lots of cards that do similarish things in terms of looking at an opponent's hand. Curious as how much that turns up on an artifact. Oh, of course, yeah, glasses of Urza. You can see, yeah, this is a good example. So it's when you actually have to tap to look at a target player's hand. Vexing Portal. Target opponent looks at the top 10 cards of your library and separates them into 2 face-down piles. Choose one of those piles and remove it from the game. Search the remaining pile and put one of those cards into your hand. Shuffle the remaining cards into your library. Ignore this effect if you have fewer than 10 cards in your library. Wow. What does that get tagged at? Tagged as tomes. Iteration. Oh yeah, fact or fiction. That's what I was trying to think of. Fact or fiction, of course. Pile dilemma. Pile dilemma based cast card advantage. Woody spider. This video is going to be so long. Hate flying. Yeah, imagine it does. There's netcaster spider. So that one's 2 and a green instead of 1 and 2 green. It's a 2/3. Has reach, which this went on to be labelled up. +2 +0. Okay, so instead of +0 +2. Synergy blocker self. What's that? Yeah, well, there's a number of cards here which have 8 hate against flying. But stapled to a creature. Oh, still quite a number there. Scarecrow. That's pretty creepy looking. Storm Elemental. Yeah, I featured Whipvine in an episode of Friday Artwork. Came up as a card. Walking sponge. And you can see a number of spiders here. Yeah, that thing. Oran Reef Recluse. Smog Elemental. Anarchy. So we've seen a number of destruction spells already. So this, you've got like, you know, these specific sweepers that target a particular colour. But I'd be interested to see what things out there at sorcery speed sweep all permanents. That would be a cool thing to have a look at, actually. So, Soul Sky, Culling Ritual, but that's non-artifact permanents. Not something you see at instant speed. But let me just check something. Not really. Oops. Planar Cleansing was the card that I was trying to think of, which similar. That one does destroy all non-land permanents. We got Ruinous Ultimatum as well. Oh, yeah, Maelstrom Pulse. Because that came out when Alara Reborn. Yeah. Essence Filter. So we're onto sideboard cards definitely now, aren't we? Yeah. Enchantment Destruction Sweeper. We've looked at that one before in a previous episode. Icy Manipulator. And you can see, as I pointed out, it's come up a few times. I don't know if I have any copies of this. Oh, yeah, 10th edition, of course. And was that original Mirrodin? Yeah, so much closer to the original artwork in terms of the Mirrodin version, anyway. Sideboard. Icing Manipulator, okay. Yeah, Ring of Gix. Mysterious Tome, Chilling Chronicle. That's a transform card. And the tapper. Yeah, I'm sure we're used to seeing this on a number of creatures, particularly white creatures. Can be super annoying to go up against in the right deck. It's happened to me a few times, I must admit, where I've been tapped down. But in terms of artifacts that do it, course, Tumble Magnet. Yeah, that was it. Crown of Empires. Oh yeah. Everybody remember this from M12? So this combo thing with Sceptre of Empires and Throne of Empires. Sorry, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent here. I'm going to see if this has the cycle. There we go. Remember those? So they like synergize with one another. Another thing that could open up a whole rabbit warren is those sets of 3 cards that synergize with each other. And they're sort of dotted out throughout Magic's history. Like the Urza lands, for instance. Jester's Cap. Interesting way of dealing with combo decks. So yeah, cool sideboard card. And it's using a term here called extract. Exile cards from a library. They're just gone now. So there's a number of extract effects. Now I believe, didn't they slightly alter Jester's Cap? Or am I getting muddled up with something else? Yeah, maybe I am. I just, for some reason, I thought there was like a powered down version of it, but yeah, I possibly could be wrong. Maybe it did it in a different way and it wasn't quite an extraction. Stable to various things. And then no doubt. So we've got Hide and Seek as our instant. And a number of sorceries that enable you to do stuff in various ways. Monsoon, whether an island is untapped to the end of the controller's turn, tap it. Monsoon deals 1 damage to that player. Only an Ice Age. A land tapper. Let's look at land tappers. 51 land tappers. I can't remember if I covered this in the No Hat and No Land episode or not. Oh, of course, Twiddle, yeah, Icy Manipulator can do lands. Moleworms, that was it. Yeah, Moleworms. I remember. So on an enchantment, of course we've got also enchantments where it just, they don't necessarily tap a particular thing, everything's tapped. Yeah, there's a few cards that do that actually. Brings a Justice. life gain, pseudo kicker, removal, artifact, destroy, shattering spree. Where's that from? What's that? That'll be Guild Pact, yeah. Oh yeah, so yeah, I did say that, didn't I? So yeah, pseudo kicker. So is that a thing? Yeah, 8 pseudo kickers. So pseudo kicker is a thing. Pyroblast. Yeah, we've seen this a few times. So yeah, stuff that specifically targets blue spells. It's the mirror of Hydroblast. And also notice here, it's been the templating on here. If I can, let me just go back, see whether that happened. No, because it's not been. Yeah, there we go. So you'll see that here they've got it templated more like a modern modal, like a modern modal spell, which it is, but it's just like laid out differently. So. Get into some obscure cards here. Burn player guess tome, card advantage millenni. Dark player names card. Turns over the top card is library. So what is a tome? Did it give? I didn't look to see if it gave a specific description. Would that be anything that any artifact that draws a card maybe as a result of some trigger? Maybe that's the thing. It looks certainly like these are all artifacts. See what we can see. Earliest tome there. Of course, Phyrexian Vault. Yes, there are many tomes in Magic, and they do slightly different things. Looks like a bit of a thing in original Mirrodin block. I do like this one, actually. Illuminated folio. And trading post. Oh yeah. Good old brick counters as well. What's the most recent tome? Relic of Sauron, the One Ring. Okay, there's a number of tomes there. So, okay, something I would be interested in is these modal staffs. Yeah. Or staves, whatever we call it. Modal staves, I do like those. Yeah, they're all artifacts. Anyway, I was curious as to what. If there was anything I could put trading post under, but no, not really. Okay. And then finally, Zuran Orb. Sideboarded, life gain, free sacrifice outlet land. Like I said, it turns up in Necro decks. Sacrifice a land to gain 2 life. And it would appear there are a number of cards that allow you to sack lands. I'm not sure how many times that turns up on artifacts. 11 times. Ooh, nice artwork. I think I have this one. Yeah, I have that one. From the Vault Relics. I don't have the whole From the Vault Relics, but I bought one for an episode of Magic Nostalgia at a time when it was a lot cheaper, actually. And since it's been reprinted in Modern Horizons. So what's an original one? Oh, $260. So the 4-1 is more expensive. But yeah, the foiling. Yes, I think the less said about the foiling on these ones, the better. Very curvy cards. So we had a look at the artifacts. Is there anything else under this before I wrap it up? Land for life. Connected to life. Anything interesting come up? Overgrown estate. Oh, of course, there's some lands that do that, isn't there? Lands that actually get you to pay 1 life to add coloured mana to your mana pool. And because Glacial Chasm, which has life as a cumulative upkeep. So some here. This is a life gain one. So that's really what I'm more interested in, is stuff where you gain life as a result of doing something. Let's got that integrated into a buyback spell. Very cool. So hopefully you've enjoyed this episode as much as I've enjoyed making it. It's got very chill and mellow and probably very long. But yeah, so I think I might have to go off and have something to eat before I record the next video, which will be an episode of Commander Fodder. And that's going to be a very interesting episode, as always. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in the next episode.